Lord Brown was born in Lola, Clabackenshire, in Scotland. He immigrated to Upper Canada in 1843 after first trying to settle in New York City back in 1837. He also founded the Toronto Globe newspaper, which later became the Daily Globe and Mail of Toronto in 1844, and was a journalist throughout his entire life. He also became involved in politics in the late 1840s and early 1850s, and used his newspaper to attack everything from the French Canadians of Lower Canada to the Catholic Church, as he was a prominent Orangeman, and he also attacked slavery in the US. He had a very long-running personal feud with John A. MacDonald, as well as just about everybody who said something he didn't like. He also calmed down significantly, as did his newspaper when he got married in 1864. Brown was also the Premier of Ontario for 4 days in 1856, after he visited John A. MacDonald in a vote of non-confidence, which was only until MacDonald did the same thing 4 days later. After that, they realized they had to work together, and what eventually became out of that, after almost a decade, political rival was that Brown supported MacDonald's vision of Confederation. Brown was also attending the Charlottetown and Quebec conferences, of which he is the main source for both of these conferences, but he didn't attend the London conference in England. After Confederation in 1867, Brown returned to being a journalist, but he was appointed as a senator by Alexander Mackenzie in 1873 before the election of 1874. Mackenzie and the Liberal Party won that election with a majority government. After that, Brown did not really do much in Parliament, as he became involved in a bitter and long-running feud with the typographical unions of Canada, which lasted from 1842 until his death in 1882. The typographical union also forced Brown to pay massive amounts of money as a result of his costly legal fees, and he began to have some financial difficulties at the end of his life. George Brown was shot by a mentally unstable Irishman on March 25th, 1882. His assassin had been fired by another employee of his the previous day. This man was arrested and later hanged. He nonetheless managed to shoot George Brown in the left leg, which thus had to be amputated. It became infected, and Brown died of gangrene on May 9th, 1882, therefore making him one of the two members of Confederation. Alexander Campbell was born in Heaton, Yorkshire, England in 1822. He came to Canada's family when he was only about a year old. In 1843, after studying in Montreal, he moved to Kingston and became a new law partner and went to business with John A. MacDonald that same year. In 1858, Campbell was elected to the legislature of Upper Canada. In 1864, he became Minister of Crown Lands, a position he held until after Confederation in 1867. With regard to Confederation itself, Campbell personally attended both the Charlottetown and Quebec conferences, in which he proposed that each province be given 24 senators, regardless of its population, so that the smaller regions and the provinces therein would have equal representation as opposed to the larger ones, because they had more members of parliament and representation according to the population system. However, although the equal numbers of senators idea caught on, and it would be implemented in the Maritimes, Quebec, and Ontario as well as in Western Canada, it later fell prey to political intrigue once Newfoundland and Northern Canada demanded more representation, as successive governments have used the system of Senate appointments as a very partisan means to control legislation, even when they're not in power anymore. As for Campbell himself, he was appointed to the Senate in 1867 and served in that capacity until his resignation in 1887. It was also after Confederation that Campbell became the only Justice Minister, in addition to a pile of other appointments, in the cabinet of John A. MacDonald for a short time, of whom he was also a close friend and confidant of. Yet for all the good he did, Campbell once told MacDonald to be absolutely ruthless regarding the Métis and native peoples of the Northwest Territories, and also as the whole of Canada as well. It was also Campbell who, along with John Davis Power Thompson, persuaded MacDonald, the Minister of Justice, in addition to being Prime Minister at the time, to move with Riel's trial from Manitoba to Regina so it couldn't be held in the Manitoba Supreme Court in Winnipeg. Campbell also later said that this was done on the grounds that in Winnipeg some of the jurors could have been Métis or at least pro-Métis. In In the end, MacDonald, Thompson, and Campbell are sure to convict me on all 6 counts of high treason that Rio was charged with, in order to have Rio hanged. In 1887, Campbell got into some sort of financial dispute with MacDonald and his arch personal and political rival, Sir John David Sparrow Thompson. He was then appointed as the 6th Lieutenant Governor of Ontario and died in office as Lieutenant Governor in 1892, aged 70. James Cockburn was born in Berwick-upon-Tweed on the Anglo-Scottish border region in 1819. The family moved to Canada when he was 13 years old, but it wasn't until the 1850s, after becoming a lawyer, that he was elected as a common councillor in Cobourg, Ontario. In 1861, Cockburn was elected to the provincial assembly of Upper Canada, but despite his reputation as a liberal and also as a reformer, he eventually joined the government of Sir John MacDonald and became a conservative politician. In terms of confederation, Cockburn only attended the Quebec Conference, and he was an enthusiastic supporter of it. In 1867, despite not being bilingual in French and English, Cockburn became the first ever Speaker of the House of Commons. He served in that position from 1867 to 1874, after a specific scandal toppled the Conservative government. He lost the 1874 election, partly because of his favourable rulings toward the government in the past. After the 1872 election, he was once again re-elected as Speaker of the House of Commons. However, Cockburn was re-elected as a Member of Parliament from 1878 to 1881. He resigned his seat in the House of Commons in 1881 and started working with John David Sparrow Thompson and John M. MacDonald on clarifying, codifying, and classifying all of Canada's different civil and criminal laws into what would eventually become the Criminal Code of Canada, as well as the Civil or Common Law Code of Canada. James Cockburn died suddenly and unexpectedly in Ottawa, aged 64, in 1883. William Pierce Howland was born in Ploughing, New York, in 1811. In 1830, he moved to Cooksville, Ontario. He basically became a Canadian citizen by naturalization as a British subject in 1841. In 1852, he inherited a grist or possibly flour mill, as well as a sawmill and a general store in the area that is now the city of Vaughan, Ontario. In 1857, Howland became a member of the Upper Canadian Legislature and Minister of Finance, as well as Receiver General and Postmaster General in quick succession. He earlier attended the London Conference and became a Member of Parliament after Confederation in 1867. He served as Minister of Inland Revenues from 1867 to 1868. Howland also served as the Lieutenant Governor of Ontario from 1868 to 1873. He was married by Queen Victoria for his work with the Guard of Confederation in 1879 and died in Toronto on January the 1st, 1907, at the age of 95. Sir John Alexander MacDonald, or just plain John A as he liked to be called, was born in Glasgow, Scotland on January the 10th, 1815, according to his father's journal, or January 11th, according to the baptismal records. Regardless, he always marked his birthday on January the 10th, so that's probably the date. MacDonald came to Kingston, Upper Canada, when he was 5 years old, as his father had declared bankruptcy in Scotland after his general store had failed. By age 15, MacDonald was a prominent Kingston lawyer and the main provider of the family, as his father's general store had once again gone bankrupt. By the age of 18, MacDonald was a common councillor in Kingston, in addition to his law practice. He also began to get interested in politics, which he would periodically go into throughout his life. By the age of 21 years old, he was the mayor of Kingston. MacDonald fought in the rebellions of 1837 on the government side and fought at the Battle of Montgomery's Tavern in Toronto. After that, he defended many of the enemy Patriot leaders, although he was not always successful in that, but did gain quite a bit of fame as a lawyer by doing so. He made the jump to provincial politics in 1843 and became Premier of Canada off and on from 1856 to 1862 and again from 1864 to 1867. Many people consider MacDonald to be the father of Confederation. In other words, Confederation was conceived by him, and he made it a political reality. This ignores all the other fathers of Confederation, and he never said it was his idea alone, so it seems to be biased opinion made up after his death. He also attended all 3 conferences in Charlottetown, Quebec City, and London. In 1867, MacDonald was appointed as the very first Prime Minister of Canada on July the 1st, 1867, where he remained until he was forced to resign from office over the Pacific Scandal on November the 5th, 1873. After a 5-year absence, he was re-elected as Prime Minister in 1878, a position he held until his death in 1891. In terms of his personal life, it was a disaster. He outlived two of his three older sisters by the time he was Prime Minister. His younger brother James MacDonald was murdered after literally being thrown at the door of his shop when he was 5 years old, and John A. MacDonald was only 7 at the time, and he witnessed it too. His first wife, Isabella Clark MacDonald, who was his first or possibly second cousin, was very ill for most of their marriage and addicted to drink and drugs. She died, probably of cancer, in 1857, at the age of 48. They had only one surviving son, Hugh John MacDonald, who was subsequently shunted around from one house to another until he was old enough to live on his own at about the age of 16. MacDonald's second eldest Bernard Shaw MacDonald, whom he married in 1867, was much happier than his first. They only had one daughter named Mary, who was born with a variety of mental and physical disabilities. It was partly because of his tragic personal life and also his constant stresses and strains of being a lawyer and politician that MacDonald became famous for his alcoholism, which probably began in the 1830s and continued off and on until his death. One of his last serious bouts of alcoholic binges occurred in 1878, although he had another major binge in 1885 for his death. In 1891, he had another. In fact, it has been estimated if he kept drinking at the rate he was going, he would have been dead somewhere between 1878 and 1885. As it was, he lived for far longer than most people ever expected of him, as he at least slowed down post 1878, and he may have stopped altogether from 1885 until 1891, although it's doubtful. MacDonald's legacy is complex and debated as anybody's in history, as no one is really without some sort of controversy. Just like the railways which he ordered built, the best thing to do is to start and see where it goes before a person makes up their mind on MacDonald. As today, he's either a figure of controversy for some of the things he ordered done, or he's a figure of fun because of his alcoholism, which lasted almost his entire adult life. In short, he's been compared to someone from a Charles Dickens novel. Yet he was also known as Old Mr. Tomorrow, the Old Chieftain, Nation Builder, and also after his death as being cast as premier patriot statesman.